Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Chang, and I'm currently an MBA candidate at Harvard Business School. I'm also the former chapter lead of the St. Louis chapter of Women in Product. Welcome to the Lead Through Change stage. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors, without whom this event would not be possible. So let's get some interaction. Where is everyone joining us from? Put in the chat where you're from, and let's see what kind of representation we have. During this session, Building Your Resilient Self, we have three wonderful speakers. First on stage, we have Nancy Lee, founder of Uncanny Business LLC. Nancy is a product person who believes in integrating experiences across different countries to build something better for the world. Her objective, be better. Nancy aims to support every person in their career journey, no matter their discipline, and spends time adding social value where it's most effective. Nancy has worked with teams large and small to transform product experiences and development best practices at Chartbeat, Rocket Trip, General Assembly, and Tumblr. Nancy is busy creating something new. She will share her expertise with you during our next presentation, Embracing the Humanity of Product Management. Please join me in welcoming Nancy Lee to our stage.
So when I was 19, I decided to follow my heart instead of my brain. And I looked at my lab partner and said, hey, I really don't care about calculating the resistance of the circuit. I'll write the lab report and contextualize the wiring if you want to finish those calculations. You see, my heart was not in the work. Even though I was building computers when I was 12, I wasn't building them because I wanted to spend time with computers. I wanted to go online and talk to people and meet people and understand what's going on with the internet and how much technology was changing how people live and work. So I changed majors to writing. In other words, I took the very long path to product management. Should have just gone to business school. The truth is that I avoided business and roles that value business acumen for a really long time. When I saw my friends entering investment banks and finance giants and operations consulting roles, I was reminded of the opening lines of Allen Ginsberg's poem, how I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness. That's not to say that my friends are mad or even that pursuing such networks is madness, but there was always something that bugged me about looking at P&Ls year over year. Because where does all that money go? Do businesses really need all of that to survive? Or are we actually just flattening the story in green numbers in a spreadsheet? And, if I'm using my brain for business, how am I using my heart? Is it even possible to use my heart in business? Spoiler alert, it is. Product with purpose is pursuing product and what we do with the values that we want to see in this world. And we are in unprecedented times. Black Lives Matter now and always. Climate change is consuming the West Coast in wildfires, and over 200,000 Americans have died from COVID. It's really fortunate then that we have empathetic leaders to help take us through this crisis. Now, in all seriousness, is there any wonder that media coverage is intensifying for compassionate and ethical and empathetic leaders? And as leaders, as product people, we are leaders. We have enormous influence over what we do in tech and how we face the problems of managing a duopoly of advertising revenue with Google and Facebook. We have salaries that are more than 3 times the median of the US for languages like Visual Basic. And the business decisions that we make will impact how people use products and how they will conduct their lives. It's a really big responsibility. But I actually take that privilege as a huge opportunity because it poses the question of what do you do with your privilege? The story of Chadwick Boseman passing a few months ago really impacted me because he was such a model for empowering other people. But beyond that, he recognized that his role wouldn't have been possible if it weren't for Denzel Washington paying for his acting workshop. Denzel Washington's act in that literally sparked Black Panther and everything else that we know from this universe. The truth is that everyone shares the same feelings, even if we don't share the same experiences. And part of that is that there's just something deeply unfair and wrong about how current events are unfolding, and the existing leadership models aren't working. But if we can learn to accept this privilege, we can learn to lead and learn to adapt. This is a definition for social entrepreneurship from Stanford Social Innovation Review in 2007, where identifying an unjust equilibrium is the first thing you have to do before you can even talk about releasing trapped potential. It's actually pretty risky, I don't know that I always know where purpose will take me, but it's definitely part of the iterative process. You, like all risk mitigation, there's a structure. And you can lead with structure. You can start your team and promote these leading indicators of market behavior. Human beings. Starting with values-based decision-making, you really have to learn how to make relationships between completely different contexts to test whether there are shared values in the first place. I love the story about Archimedes and the Eureka effect and this aha moment that product people strive for, because it's about him trying to measure the matter of a gold object in an untraditional way, and he figured that out because he was taking a bath. Completely unrelated things, but he was able to make that connection because he saw the analogies. And analogies help you cross disciplines. They help you onboard and adapt quickly to your team. Even if there are specific tasks for execution, concepts are universal. If you can understand the underlying concept and explain it in terms that your team would grasp faster, then you very quickly engender accessibility and empathy, not to mention engagement. The truth is that customer adoption is really difficult to predict, and there's certain feelings that you can predict, like whether outcomes are effective over the long term, and you could use NPS as this, but NPS is a lagging indicator. The feelings already happened, and so how exactly are you going which is why it's even more important to listen to your emotions and use that as data for your intuition. Tying together completely unrelated studies and feelings can help you get there. Looking at this survey of American feelings in the years in 2018, you see this continual increase in stress and worry and anger. So is it any wonder that if there is a catastrophe like COVID or people getting murdered in the middle of dealing with COVID, that there would be rage and despair? My intuition tells me that that's warranted. And emotional intelligence really just helps you connect to people. Users are people, and people help you with your social skills and your priorities. Intuitive strategy is really just an assessment of the behaviors you can predict. What is the discomfort surfacing? One big thing for me is making sure that the profit that I'm creating is invested back into the communities. And we see a lot of people want to have memberships or membership economies, but none of that would be possible if you didn't have those companies actually behaving like that and investing back into their employees and into their values. You may not make trillions of dollars like Amazon, but you might be a co-op that makes billions of dollars. Or you might be making a couple $100 million when you start it with 350. And by aligning your products to your values and your community, you can say that, hey, climate change is more important to us than selling product. So I think really membership is a long-term contract, and if you want to have genuine community, you invest your profits into your values and into your networks. If it weren't for the mutual aid movement and whoever benefits from the terms of these communities, is it really necessary to give even more money to people with privilege, or maybe we want underrepresented perspectives elevated a little bit more? So everyone has a different leadership style, and people are drawn to very different models of leaders. But it's actually hard to fake your values, because how you live in accordance to your values becomes very, very obvious from your behaviors. You can't say that you value diversity and inclusion and in the same executive order signal the end of training for diversity and inclusion. I think authenticity is often misunderstood because everyone's always trying to say, like, how can you be authentic and still resonate with people? I think it's actually just pretty simple. You just have 3 conditions to check, because authenticity is really developing an innate understanding of what you want and what you will do to get what you want. So is your behavior aligned to your values? Are your networks reflective of your credibility? And do your decisions empower other people? I think that's how you know. That's how you know if you're actually living to your values. This is a lot. It's a huge responsibility. And, what can you do now, today, tomorrow, to really keep growing and keep learning? Practical tactics, if you're in this for the end game, there are 3. Read literature, volunteer time, and financial literacy. Reading literature helps you build empathy You read poetry and novels and personal essays, and you drop into the shoes of characters that have very different experiences and perspectives from you. You learn how empathy works. Volunteering means you are trying to hone in where you're spending your time and your mental resources, and you're reaching out to your community in a way that you wouldn't always be able to do if you were just doing product market research. But the bonus, it is product research, and you get a first-hand experience of market needs. And lastly, definitely not least, we all know intergenerational wealth influences so many decisions. And it's hard to kind of figure out if it's the right time to manage that discomfort and donate money forward. But that's okay, because part of it is just teaching other people that finances can be managed and it's not hard. It's going to take a lot of investment to narrow down your purpose, and I'm not suggesting that it is a light thing, but overall, your values are what will help you become better product people, and your values are going to help you build better products because you're making conscious decisions to support a community. And forget, the art is in the process. Thanks for listening. I'm looking forward to all your questions.
Thank you, Nancy Lee. Next up, please welcome Shawna Wolverton, Executive Vice President of Product at Zendesk. As Executive Vice President of Product at Zendesk, Shawna manages the organization's global product teams to deliver thoughtfully designed, market-changing products. She follows a customer-first mindset and is energized by seeing what experiences are possible with Zendesk technology. Shawna currently holds 3 patents, and her career has revolved around making hard concepts easy and intuitive for users. She previously spent 15 years at Salesforce as a Senior Vice President of Product Management, where she was a pivotal part of multiple product strategy teams, including the Customer 360 platform. Shawna Wolverton will share her expertise with you during our next presentation, The Empathy of Product Creation.
Hi, I'm Shawna Wolverton, and I'm the EVP of Product for Zendesk. And in this role, I like to think of myself as the product manager of the product management organization. I don't get to roll up my sleeves and build great products much these days, but I do get to build out the teams and processes that hopefully lead to that. But, I've spent my time in the trenches, and I do know that this is an incredibly tough job. You have a ton of accountability with not a whole bunch of direct responsibility, and it's a constant balance between sort of the needs of your customers and the needs of your business. But the joy that comes from seeing the things that you've built in the hands of your customers and the impact that has on their lives is the thing that totally makes it worth it. And speaking of customers, once you have them, they're really shy about telling you what else they want from you, right? Who among us is not carrying from release cycle to release cycle that long list of voice of the customer requests or top ideas? But I really think in this role, our mission is bigger than that, right? We aren't just the people who walk the requirements from the customer to the engineers, right? And a big part of that is developing incredibly deep empathy, sort of being able to walk in the shoes of our customers so that we can build the things that, they probably can't even articulate that they want, but that hopefully we can discover that they need. And in that process, I think even the most seasoned among us can sometimes make a few mistakes on that journey. And I thought today I would go through a few of them and we could talk a little bit about how to mitigate them. But before we get started, I thought I would introduce you all to Zendesk. If you're not familiar, we are a service-first CRM company, and I really think about Zendesk's mission is sort of delivering the tools to our customers so that they can deliver the best customer experiences. You can see we're a very global team in sort of 10 out of 17 of those offices. We are actually doing product development. And speaking of empathy, there's nothing like the last few months to sort of have all of us understand what it feels like to be not at HQ. So there's always opportunities to learn new things. So I thought we'd go through 3 of the mistakes sometimes that get made. One is about knowing who our customers are and what they need. Having the right people in the conversation about what we're building for those customers. And then, this last one's tricky too, a little bit of the ego that sort of gets wrapped up in being a product manager. And I wanted to start with this first one because I think it really is like the air that we breathe as product managers, the sort of you have one job, and that is fundamentally understanding your customers. But for a lot of reasons, sometimes we get a little waylaid, right? I think, our brains are wired to make some assumptions, right? If we didn't, we would all be stuck, somewhere back in our rooms trying to figure out how to get up out of bed and get dressed and get to work. This is an efficiency that our brain gives to us, and it's a gift. But I think as product managers, it's our responsibility to really go and check back in on a lot of those assumptions that we have made. One of the assumptions I make or have made in my career, I wish I could say I only made it once, but one of the sort of glaring examples here is very early in my career. And that's that I thought my customers were just like me. It was the early days of the internet. Everyone was going online. Why wouldn't you want to go online? And I was responsible for building an online database for custom part suppliers. We can't all be working on the coolest tech. But anyway, it was cool at the time. And what I was doing was faxing mostly, sending a lot of forms by fax to customers. They were faxing them back. And then we were doing data entry to get that data in. And I thought, man, this has to be easier for them. And to be honest, for us, right? How can we make it so that this is more of an online experience? And I spent a whole bunch of time building out some great designs. How can we make it super easy for these part suppliers to sort of enter the information that customers would want to know about them? And I built it. And with hindsight now, not surprisingly, they did not come. And I had the opportunity to go to Chicago to the Plastics World trade show. Sadly, I don't think it's a thing anymore, but I will tell you, there's nothing like getting your tchotchke warm from the giant plastic injection molding machine. But anyway, while I was there, I got a chance to visit one of these suppliers. And I walked in the office and I had a conversation with this woman, and I'm looking around. And what I'm seeing is a giant bank of fax machines, and they're all whirring, right? There are contracts, there are specs. Like, this business is doing its collaboration via fax. And I asked her, like, computers? And she's like, well, there's some engineers that have the really detailed, like, engineering machines over there. And then I think our finance person has one in the back. They do like the books, but this is how we're doing the business. And it fundamentally changed the way I thought about what I was building. And I had just assumed that, like me, everyone would want, an easier, automated, internet-based way to do this. And it gave me the opportunity to go back and present a whole different set of problems to my team, where we could build some interfaces that let these people continue to work in the way they worked on fax machines, while the giant manufacturers who wanted their services could find them and engage with them in the way that they were comfortable, which was online. So, I think we all go in and, think we know who it is we're building for, and we've made a bunch of leaps. And it's not always just thinking, that you are them. There's lots of ways that we make these shortcuts, and it's always good to go back and remember that as soon as you're really certain that you know exactly who your customer is, it's time to go back and ask again. And when we ask, I think it's about having a different kind of conversation. I think we tend to have conversations that are very much about showing people ideas we have and getting feedback on them, or doing research that is very narrow to a problem that we are specifically trying to solve. And, you know, my plea is to go out and have those conversations in a more open-ended way, understand what their life sort of outside that task looks like, so that you can really better understand and better build the kinds of things that they need. And really, you know, don't just sort of wait for the thumbs up or thumbs down on the very particular thing you want feedback on, but have an open-ended, bigger conversation, and I assure you, interesting insights will pop out. And the second thing really is about, you know, making sure that the sort of panel you have, whether it's your colleagues, whether it's your best customers you're always talking to, are a reflection of what your customer base could potentially look like, right? I mean, I think we know how this happens. We hire people that we knew from college or that we worked with before. We like it when we meet people that we like and they get our jokes. But you end up with a lot of homogeny, right? I mean, if you find that your interview process for new folks involves 6 hours of playing Settlers of Catan, it's a pretty narrow band of people you're going to find acceptable. And I think this is true not just for our colleagues, but also for how we think about the customers that we talk to when we are having those conversations. I think, you know, this is a fantastic opportunity for us to sort of point and laugh at a company that really spectacularly did this wrong, right? There are a whole bunch of reasons that BIC might think that women needed special pens that were pink. But it's clear that there was not a woman at the table, and there was not a bunch of research that happened for women who might be potential consumers of this product. Or if there were, they weren't heard. And that's the other problem, right? You can bring people in, but you need to empower them, not just to be at the table, but to have a strong voice that's heard at the table. But, you know, some examples of this aren't just ridiculous pink pens for tiny lady hands. One of my favorite stories here is, you know, a startup in the Salesforce automation space. They're in San Francisco. They are talking to other startups. They're a startup. Their whole portfolio of people who they talk to are startups. And the number one thing that they heard from customers over and over and over again was they wanted an integration to Crunchbase. And that made sense to them, right? Because everyone they're talking to is a startup too, and having data about startups would be a great feature. And it was, you know, top of their big giant release, and they were spouting all of this great news about their Crunchbase integration, and they got a little bit out of the Bay Area or out of, you know, other tech centers, and they were like, Crunchbase? Why? Those aren't my customers. That's not who I care about. So I think there is a lot of layers of this around, you know, talk to people who aren't like you, talk to people who aren't near you, talk to people who, you know, are going to give you a different perspective, and then be open to listening and really to take that feedback in a serious way. And I think, you know, this has changed a little. We're not really getting out. We're all spending a lot of time in, as it were. Welcome to my home. These four walls are where we're spending a lot of our time. But I do think there's actually an interesting opportunity here. You know, I think previously to sort of have these conversations and to engage with folks, it was about getting on a plane, flying somewhere else, going to events, seeing customers. And there's an opportunity now with a sort of level playing field of all of this being remote that we can participate in a lot of places previously that we couldn't. So conferences like this you know, in Europe, in Asia, are way more accessible to us than they ever were before. And it's a great way to get out, to participate in the community parts of those, engage with people who are going to bring a different perspective. So, virtually get out. And then this last one is really about sort of the nature of product management and how hard it is, especially for us, to find out that we were wrong, right? We invest so much time and so much energy into research and design and discovery and making sure that we're building the absolute right things for our customers. And sometimes we get it wrong. Sometimes we build the wrong thing and they use it and we hear that it's wrong. Sometimes we build a great thing, but customers find new and unique ways to use it and it falls over for those use cases we didn't anticipate. Or sometimes we just have some tremendously bad luck. Like if you had spent a very long time trying to figure out the problem of disrupting ticket sales and you came out with the world's best product on March 1st to help everyone have a much better experience for how they bought tickets and went to events, right? No fault of your own, but we do tend to get kind of wrapped up in these things. And, we want to be right. And so much of the juice that we get as product managers is shipping things and seeing customers use them. And I think it's important for us to realize that, customers are an interesting bunch. There is, no single way a customer is in the world. And sometimes the things we do don't sort of hit the mark. And I think it's important for us to know when to let go, right? And if we're having those deep, empathetic conversations with our customers, if we're out in the world and we're engaging with them, then we can hear about it, right? It's not always that it has to be shut down. Maybe we have to just rotate a little, or sometimes we have to go and fix some really critical bugs to unlock some of these use cases our customers found. And that's part of the process. And it doesn't make us bad product managers. It actually can really help us be better, right? And like I said, if we've invested in really understanding and knowing our customers and keeping that feedback loop going, then there's a tremendous amount of goodwill that you can build up with customers. And if you're clear with them about what you got right and honest about what you got not quite right, I think you'll find there's a tremendous amount of, like I said, goodwill and forgiveness waiting for you, not just with your customers, but also with your peers and usually with your management chain as well. And, despite our best efforts, sometimes our customers leave us. And I think as product managers, we do a lot of activity that sort of talks to customers in the beginning of our life cycle, right? We understand where they are before they buy or before they try and what it feels like to be a customer. And those are the people we tend to talk to. And I think it's important to go and talk to the customers who left and understand why. It's never 100% because the product didn't work. But I think there's a tremendous amount of feedback that you can bring back to your team about the experience of the product, and then to bring back to the organization about sort of the experience of your organization and how everyone can be improving. So even, the things that don't go so well have a tremendous opportunity for us to learn, to take that feedback and to incorporate it into the things that we need to do differently in the future. So to wrap it all up, I think this is so much about, being super curious about your customers and always remembering that the sort of process of knowing your customers is never done. Understanding that you need a group of people around you who maybe aren't like you and who aren't maybe, super comfortable, but it's important for us to push those boundaries so that we can build better products for the vast array of people who are out there who could consume them. And then, finally sort of understand that really in sort of this job we do of building product, there isn't really failure. There's just another opportunity for us to learn how to do things different or better next time. So thanks so much. I hope this was useful. It was great talking to all of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Shawna Wolverton. Next up, please welcome Christine Cho, Product Manager at LinkedIn. Christine is a product manager at LinkedIn, where she is building a new B2B sales product, leaning on her diverse experience in legal, marketing, growth, and product management. She co-leads LinkedIn's own Women in Product and is a member of a cross-functional team working to make LinkedIn products and algorithms fair and equitable. She has also served as an advisor to Female Founders School, as a guest judge for Product Bud's Demo Day for aspiring product managers, and as a mentor to underrepresented groups seeking roles in product. Christine Cho will share her expertise with you during our next presentation, Launching a Product During a Global Crisis.
Hello, Women in Product. My name is Christine Cho, and I am a product manager at LinkedIn. This year's conference theme of building resilience couldn't be a better one for the talk that I'm going to share today, which is on launching a new product during a global crisis. A new product launch is difficult enough as it is, yet throw a global pandemic into the mix and the struggle is very real. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and very transparently share that we haven't even launched yet. That's right, I had wanted to come to this presentation and share how we had a successful launch despite all of our trials and tribulations, and yet we had a curveball thrown our way and we have had to realistically delay our launch into early 2021. So unfortunately, I cannot share the product name, specific details, etc. However, I will share the very real-time lessons that we are learning along the way, how we reassessed our go-to-market checklist, and how we're focusing on the things that we still can control with regard to our customers, our team, and our company. So sit back and relax, pour yourselves a drink, you deserve it, and let's talk about launching a product during a global crisis. So to set some context on how I ended up here, I have about 8 years of experience in the tech industry. I actually started in legal, at the legal department at Google, and then I transitioned into the startup space where I tried product marketing and then product management. And I've been at LinkedIn for about 1.5 to 2 years. I was very excited to work on this new product, and so I decided to give it a shot. That new product is actually an enterprise sales software product at LinkedIn. That's right, LinkedIn isn't just a place to post your online resume and look for jobs. It actually has thriving B2B business lines, and sales solutions, which I PM for, is one of them. It focuses on building product that helps companies' sales teams succeed. There's an existing product already called Sales Navigator, which is the screenshot that you see today, and my team and I are building the second product to join that. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, especially since I can't, but all you need to know is that the new product is a sales planning tool and that it's meant to be for the target audience of sales operations or sales ops. But regardless of what type of product that you build, whether you're at a large or a small company, I invite you to time travel back with me to March 2020. Imagine that the product that you and the team have been building from the ground up has finally made it to beta. And this is your go-to-market plan. You've completed alpha testing from last year. You'll beta test your product for about 2.5 quarters, collecting valuable feedback and data to determine readiness to launch. Here's where you stand on the go-to-market requirements. So, good news is you've got a good grasp on what the market needs already. So you've checked off number 1. There's a real problem you can uniquely solve. During beta, you'll determine your product readiness, such as validation that you've built the right MVP. And you'll assess your sales readiness, such as validation for your product pricing model, and customers' willingness to pay. Then you'll have a global launch with your final go-to-market ready product in September. You're excited, the team's excited, and your leadership's excited. Then everything comes to a halt with the pandemic. With setbacks delaying your plans, your launch schedule has to change. You anticipated hitting the ground running with beta in March and launch in September. But given the setbacks, it's best to de-risk your launch and postpone to early 2021. These are the simultaneous setbacks that contributed to lost time and momentum during Q1 and Q2. Newfound uncertainty on our product market fit, decline in engagement from our customers, shift in company priorities that then led to reduced resourcing, key roadmap items were no longer relevant or feasible, decline in team morale, hits to productivity, decreased focus, motivation, and of course, health. One of the worst effects of all of these factors compounding, is that because they happened at the same time, it made us feel like we were out of control because every aspect of our lives were upended at once. The first lesson that I learned on staying resilient during this time was try to understand your new reality quickly and then focus immediately on where you still have control. Because the best way to recover from this is focusing on the choices that you still have. So within the market and its impact on potential customers, within the company and within the team, as shown here, you have to defend your product launch as best as you can. Because the market had changed so drastically, we needed to assess, again, whether there was a real customer problem or need, and whether we could uniquely solve it. Secondly, we had to reassess our product market fit. Unfortunately, prospects that had shown interest before COVID-19 initially didn't have the capacity or time to meet with us. They were experiencing hiring pauses, budget cuts or freezes, and layoffs. We lost weeks of valuable time here due to these paused conversations. However, for those that we did reach again, we learned that there still was a demand for a product like ours. Sales organizations had done their annual planning using pre-COVID data. But with the pandemic, they needed to completely rethink their plans. Our prospects needed live, up-to-date data and insights to guide them on how to intelligently update their strategies, and they trusted LinkedIn to provide this. So the problem still existed, and we were well positioned to solve it. Then, to test if we still had product market fit, our rockstar product marketing managers, or PMMs, tailored our narrative and value propositions to the current market. They created COVID-specific messaging to arm the sales reps who were on customer calls. These pitch decks outlined problems customers are trying to address in the new normal and how specifically our product could help. Doing this enabled our reps to speak more confidently and offer solutions. Based on the feedback on these new value propositions and product demos, we learned that we probably still had product market fit if we delivered on our MVP roadmap. We learned that more than ever, customers wanted deeper integrations and even automation between our product and their own tools and systems, particularly around their customer relationship management systems, or CRMs. Okay, so what about willingness to pay? We really needed customers to start validating that we were building the right set of MVP features. But with customers' tightened budgets post-COVID, we experimented with an early bird discount. This was only short-term. They had to purchase within the first half of our beta program to get it. Now, some of you might disagree with this approach as it doesn't validate the pricing model. But early on in beta, we made that trade-off because we really needed product market validation. It might sound like the market and conditions seem favorable to us so far, but to be honest, the process to get these learnings was messy and challenging. And even so, the selling motion has been slow and disappointing, and we're nowhere near the target of customers that we thought we would have before COVID hit. But again, we focus on what we can control, and we move on. Now let's move on to the second circle, company dynamics and their impact to our roadmap. Now this is the fun part. You get to take a sneak peek into what's happening at LinkedIn. So starting with the good news, how people sell has dramatically changed due to COVID. Whereas traditional sales called for face-to-face meetings, with COVID, online sales is on the rise. A recent McKinsey study shows that B2B companies see digital interactions as 2 to 3 times more important to their customers than traditional sales interactions. So Sales Navigator, that other product in our business line that I mentioned, is experiencing exceptional online growth. However, the bad news for us is this means they need more resourcing and urgently. Now remember that we had determined that our MVP had to include integration features, which would take up the bulk of our engineering resources in Q2 and Q3, and we absolutely had to finish them before launch. However, Sales Navigator was crushing it and needed help, and our execs had to prioritize strategically. Given that the already established multi-million-dollar generating product in our business line needed help, that totally makes sense. But this also meant that around a third of our engineering bandwidth was given to Sales Navigator for a quarter when we needed them most. This was the moment I felt my lowest during all the time that we worked remotely. The launch was difficult enough as it is, but to feel that the team was split between projects now was incredibly demotivating. We would have to push back our own delivery timelines, which were already at risk as well. We tried to push back against this. We made business cases for why it didn't make sense and why we should prioritize us just as much as we did before COVID. We costed how many weeks it would set us back, but to no avail. We simply had to accept this as beyond our control. So then what could we do? We knew that our remaining resources had to be devoted to those heavy-set integration features that we talked about that were critical to our MVP. So what we did was cut non-MVP features from the roadmap, even though we had finished PRDs, designs, and costing for some of them. Since we were putting our biggest and only bet on the MVP features, we needed to make sure to de-risk them. Because of COVID, we didn't have the large enough volume of customers in beta to get sufficient customer feedback while designing and building. So we had to get a little creative. We partnered with our own in-house sales operations team, who gave us a first round of feedback, and then they gave us connections to sales ops leaders in the industry, who then were able to give us valuable insights into their pain points and their product feedback as well. We learned to separate signals from noise, which was difficult to do. Early on in the pandemic, customers asked for features that were very reactive in the short term to the pandemic, like insights about which companies were experiencing layoffs in the past few months. Ultimately, we decided at the time being that they were noise that would distract us from the MVP. Lastly, I learned to reframe. I realized that the worst part of building a feature for a different product was that I didn't feel like I had a choice in the matter. By reframing and thinking of the big picture instead, and realizing that our business line had an opportunistic moment and that we were really needed to help, I made peace with the decision and moved on. All right, lastly, let's focus on team. Team unity is important when launching a product, but difficult to do remotely. It's hard to brainstorm and collaborate over laptops rather than in person. And then there are those unexpected events, difficulties with childcare, wildfire evacuations, injuries, burnout. All of these happen to members of my team. But again, there are areas where you, especially as the PM, can make a difference. We had frequent check-ins in the beginning when we needed information and support for each other. We started the week off with Monday morning check-ins and weekly happy hours on Friday. Over time, Zoom fatigue settled in, so then we tailored and reduced the frequency of those informal meetings as needed. When working remotely, many decisions get made over Zoom or Slack. It's easy for the record of those decisions to get lost. As the PM, decide on a source of truth, such as the PRD, and make sure those decisions are documented and communicated well. We were transparent and honest, such as sharing what was going on behind the scenes with that resourcing battle I mentioned earlier. It was important to maintain trust that we would fight to protect the team and share our disappointment when we couldn't. And it goes both ways. I've had engineers reach out to me one-on-one to check in, and being able to share those frustrations we were individually going through together made a big difference for my morale and a feeling that I wasn't so alone. Lastly, I encourage you to be your team's culture champion. We do quarterly team events like online cooking classes, sending gifts to a coworker who just had a baby, sending a get well soon card, and jokes to someone who had an injury, doing birthday shout outs on Slack, and having bi-weekly game nights on Thursdays. Also, share compassion, buffer in time for rest and recovery, and burnout avoidance. Burnout does happen. I wish I had known this sooner. Even though your team is not taking vacation, make sure that you are showing care by adding some of that buffer room and making sure that they get both physical and mental rest. And I'm going to add another one here. Of course, don't forget, remember to take care of yourself. It's hard to stay resilient during these times. It's hard to put on a brave face and show up with a positive attitude for your team day after day. And I feel that struggle. But be kind to yourself. Don't internalize the failings, the setbacks as a sign that you are a bad PM. No one has gone through anything like this before. And lastly, what was important for me, refocus your why. When I joined, I saw success as binary, as I launch or I don't, and really pinned the success of my career to one of those two outcomes. When I refocused my why during the pandemic and realized that I'm actually here for the team and I'm actually here to build something together and get through this as a cohesive unit, it changed my purpose and it made me more inclined to stick around and really believe in us. So refocus your why. Choose to see success as being at a company that cares for you. LinkedIn has been amazing during the pandemic in caring for its employees. And instead of feeling disgruntled, I am feeling grateful. I choose to be here and I choose to be resilient. So we went over a lot, but the key takeaways here today are focus on what you can control, reassess your go-to-market checklist, and be a team player for your company and a culture champion for your team. And most importantly, refocus your why. So thank you. I hope that was helpful to you, and I cannot wait to talk to you in the live session. Feel free to reach out to me. I am Christine Cho, and you can connect on LinkedIn, of course. Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you, Nancy Lee, Shawna Wolverton, and Christine Cho, and to all those who have joined us live. If you would like to connect with our speakers, they are available for Q&A and roundtable discussions in our interactive sessions at 10 a.m. Pacific Time. You can find the sessions on the side navigation of the hop-in window. Coming up next on this stage, join us for Building an Ambiguity. Be sure to check out our many ways to network with your fellow attendees. Reach out directly or meet someone new in our networking mixers under sessions where you'll be paired with a fellow product manager for a timed chat. We want your feedback. See the in-app agenda to review sessions and talks, then continue the discussion in group chats. Don't forget to check out our virtual selfie station in the #20WIP or #20WIP app. I know a lot of us are either currently job seeking or always on the lookout for the next cool opportunity. If that's you, check out the Hop-In sponsor booths. You'll find recruiters ready to chat and product managers from your dream companies to give you the breakdown on what it takes to work there. Thank you again for joining us, and be sure to join us for our next session on this stage, Building an Ambiguity.